Good afternoon and welcome back to Tactics Board. Today we're previewing Norwich City's home game against Cardiff, which kicks off tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Looking forward to it after two consecutive home wins. And as Max Aarons said after the game on Tuesday, when you frame it as 7 points from 3 games, the draw with Wigan Athletic on the road feels quite a lot better than it did on the day. That may have been one of the worst performances or one of the least entertaining football games I've ever seen in my life. But thankfully, now we've got a 3-1 win with a wonder goal from Marcelino Nunez and a very exciting goal from Christos Jolis to talk about. But we're looking ahead today on Tactics Board, and we're going to take a look at how Kieran Dowell's injury may affect Norwich City. I don't know if people have seen the press conference with David Wagner on our YouTube channel. If not, I very much recommend it. But if not, he's basically said that Kieran Dowell will be out until the back end of April with a knee injury, which is an absolutely massive blow for the team and for Kieran Dowell, who's out of contract in the summer and I'm sure was hoping for an opportunity to impress and perhaps win a new deal coming towards the end of that and perhaps get an extension in the summer. So it's a bit of a blow to both the team and the individual, and we're going to talk about how tactically that's going to affect Norwich against Cardiff tomorrow, and then we're going to come on to my predicted 11, and you'll find out how I think David Wagner may replace Dowell and whether Josh Sargent, who's expected to return to the matchday squad after injury, how I think he might fit in. So first of all, I'm going to play a clip from Max Aarons because I think that actually helps explain what one of the biggest impacts of Kieran Dowell's injury may be. I spoke to him post-match after that Birmingham win, and he told me that Kieran Dowell has basically been very key in his improved performances in recent weeks.
To ask you about your relationship with Kieran Dowell, I think your relationship with Emi Buendia was obviously you seem to thrive with that. Do you like it when wingers tend to cut in so that you've got that space on the outside to go and attack?
Yeah, I think it really helps my game having a winger that comes inside the pitch and leaves that space for me to get round, and that really helps, and that's what the manager wants. So I love playing with that type of winger, and Kieran's been really good recently, and I hope he's not picked up a knock or anything tonight because we're going to need him going towards the end of the season now.
So a little bit of a worrying one, given obviously the fact that Dowell did end up missing out on a few games as a result of that knee injury and will end up missing out on those games. Max Aarons talking about how important he's going to be for the team this season, going into a few weeks without him is quite worrying, especially given how much more impressive Max Aarons has been under David Wagner, and the fact that Dowell's ability to come inside has given him that space to go outside and attack. So here's a diagram of how that tends to play out in games with Dowell and Aarons, and what perhaps won't be capable, what Aarons won't be capable of doing tomorrow because of that lack of Dowell. So this space you can see in the top right is where Dowell notionally occupies in the sense of, if we map a formation out, he's on the right wing, and in the defensive scenario, he does tend to press from the right. But often when he's on the ball or when the space opens up in the middle, he goes inside, and that's where you saw him score goals like he did against Hull, finishing off chances in the middle of the pitch and also finding assists for the likes of Teemu Pukki and Josh Sargent, and that's where he thrives the most. And it also works very well for Max Aarons because, as he spoke about just then, he likes to get around the outside, and you've seen him probably have slightly more space when he's worked with Dowell than when Josh Sargent has been out wide, as he consistently was under Dean Smith, because Sargent also, if he's on the ball, tends to go out to that right-sided position. And although he liked to float inside and finish off chances like Dowell has, once he got on the ball, his inkling was to try and go on the outside of defenders, and that meant that Aarons wasn't often getting to the byline. He was often having to cross from the corner of the box because Sargent would tee him up. And that's not really Aarons' strength, to be honest. Where he thrives is beating defenders, getting to the byline, and then finding low crosses or cutbacks for the strikers. And Dowell's movement had allowed him to do that. And looking at Wagner's different options for tomorrow, it doesn't look likely that he's able to do that. Marquinhos would be the primary left-footed option, obviously the loan signing from Arsenal in January, but he's yet yet to appear in yellow and green, and David Wagner has spoken about his need to build his fitness levels up. Obviously, he's struggled with injury so far, just minor muscle injuries, and it looks likely that he'll be in the squad tomorrow. But whether he can go straight into a starting position seems unlikely. He's also more of your traditional winger and wants to take on defenders than perhaps Dow did. So although on the ball he may be dribbling as if he's going inside, his movement isn't going to be so much that there's a lot of space created for Aaron's outside. And then you come on to the likes of Josh Sargent, who we just spoke about, and the weaknesses in terms of how that affects Aaron's and how that affects the team are clear. He's also not a very technical player in some senses. So out there where you want a little bit of creativity, and in that position where Norwich have found a lot of their creativity this season, having somebody like Josh Sargent maybe would be a frustration for Adam Eder, who looks likely to start through the middle. But then again, I suppose you could suggest that Marcelino Nunez, who looks incredibly likely to start in the number 10 position after such a fantastic performance on Tuesday, may provide those balls. So perhaps Norwich could afford to have a player like Sargent out wide. Then the option, which I'm sure will be popular amongst Norwich fans, is Christos Jolis, who obviously scored late on Tuesday, and probably thought he was in with a shout for the left wing position given Ono Hernandez's performance. I'm not criticising him necessarily. I don't think he was bad, but he didn't perhaps threaten the defence and do as much as he has previously, either in that Birmingham game or against Wigan at the weekend. So I think it would have been a real significant battle in training between Jolis and Hernandez had Dow not even been injured. But the fact that a position has opened up on the right perhaps means that David Wagner can have both. And we know how big of a fan he is of Ono Hernandez so far. So it'll be interesting what he goes with. But the Jolis situation is similar to the Sargent one in some ways and the Marquinhos one in other ways, in that he will be out wide. Obviously, he's a right footer. And he's slightly more technical than Marquinhos, than Sargent. I think he would still improve the levels of creativity and help the team in that way, like maybe Marquinhos would. But in terms of occupying that space that Aaron's likes, that would be a problem. And it would perhaps nullify the creativity of the right back, and that would be a worry. But with that, a little bit of doom and gloom in quite a positive time for Norwich City, I'm going to come on to my predicted 11. And due to recent results, I'm sure you won't be surprised at some of the selections I've made. So here's what I've gone for. Angus Gunn in goal, Max Aarons at right back, Grant Hanley and Ben Gibson at centre back, Dimitris Giannoulis at left back, Gabriel Sara and Kenny McLean at the base of midfield, with Marcelino Nunez at number 10, Ono Hernandez on the left, Christos Jolis on the right I've gone for, and Adam Eder up front. I just think obviously I'm going to skip straight to the sort of attacking section, because I think that's what people will be most interested in. Wagner does place a lot on fitness and how ready a player is, and he's a little bit like Daniel Farke in the way that he eases players back in rather than tending to throw them straight back in after a mid or long-term injury. And Josh Sargent's been out for a few weeks. He probably hasn't got that sharpness that perhaps Wagner demands in the press and in his attacking players. Jolis is a player who's been slowly building up his minutes. His confidence must be sky high at the moment after a fantastic goal against Birmingham. And he just seems like the most natural fit for that position. Obviously, the tactical problems I spoke about will be there, but the fact that Kieran Dowell is injured mid to long term means that they can't really avoid the fact that they're going to lose something in that area. And perhaps you could blame the recruitment for the lack of depth in certain scenarios. I think there are a lot of players in that department, but perhaps not enough carbon copies to go in and replicate Wagner's system. Then again, perhaps we would be criticising on the other end of the scale if there weren't any different options and all the players were the same. So it's a difficult balance to strike, but the essence of it is that Kieran Dowell's injury means something will change, and perhaps some things will weaken, but it may be that in other ways there's more strength. There will be more pace in the team with somebody like Christos Jolis or Marquinhos or even Josh Sargent in the team. It will probably be slightly more direct, which is something Wagner likes in the final third at least, if not when building through the thirds. And I think there are many ways that Norwich can benefit from this. Of course, they will lose out because of Dowell, but I've gone with Christos Jolis because I think if it were me picking it, I probably would pick him. And the only other position I think there's a discussion to be had is sort of defence. Ben Gibson came in for Andrew Omobamidele, but I don't think anyone will be surprised if he retains that position. Wagner spoke about Omobamidele being tired, and he did come on for the final few minutes to try and shore things up. But I think Gibson's performance was fantastic. I gave him an 8 in my player ratings, and I think he was fully deserving of that. Very calm, very cool. Never really looked threatened by the Birmingham attack, and made some really key blocks and clearances. And his passing out is a real strength. It also allows Grant Hanley to play on the right, where he looks slightly more natural. And I think there are many benefits to that. Other than that, I think the team sort of speaks for itself. The way that they've been performing in the last few games, especially on Tuesday, means that I think it would be harsh if we saw too many changes. So that's what I think David Wagner will go with. Let me know what you think and what you hope for in the comments, or get in touch with us via our social media feeds. Of course, there's plenty of stuff all over Pink 'Un channels ahead of the Cardiff game. There will be a Wagner's press conference up now, obviously. Connor and Paddy will be reacting to the team news when it drops, so they'll actually have the information for sure at that time. So tune in to that live at 2:00 on this channel. And then there's loads of written stuff all over pinkun.com and the Pink 'Un Plus app, which you can sign up for now for free for a month, a free 30-day trial. And then if you don't like it, then obviously we hope you do. But if you don't like it, you can cancel and you don't lose anything. But thereafter, it's only $1.99 a month, which I think is fantastic value for the columnists we've got, exclusive insight and analysis, loads of stuff there that you can consume on the Pink 'Un Plus app and on pinkun.com. So get yourselves over there. If you want to try out Pink 'Un Plus, it's pinkun.com/subscribe. Thank you very much for joining me on Tactics Board, and I hope to see you here again next week. Let's hope we're talking about another positive week in the life of Norwich City, and let's hope we're talking about 3 points against Cardiff.